Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review, someone requested I review this, so I'm going to do that. It's Concert for George. Recorded November 29th, 2002, on the first anniversary of George Harrison's passing. And it was recorded at the Albert Hall, and this lovely 2 DVD package came out. I did have it on CD, but I seem to remember my copy didn't work and I couldn't return it because I'd come back to Hungary, and for one reason or another that copy's disappeared. Not that it worked anyway, but so I just have it on DVD, and quite frankly that's the best format for me to watch this, because the concert is a visual treat as well as being a musical treat. A lot of my heroes are in this, and although some of them not quite so young as they used to be, and sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to recognize people because they look a little bit older here in 2002 than they had done in their prime. But thankfully the sleeve notes help you with that. There's a nice booklet here with contributions from Danny and Olivia and pictures. And yeah, as I say, I watched both last night, and disc 2 is kind of truncated version of the concert with additional material, interviews with Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne and Jim Keltner and others, members of Monty Python, and it's quite interesting to see how all these friends came together for this glorious concert. And Jeff Lynne said some of them didn't even know each other and got on extremely well, which is just how you would want it. And so I'll go through the concert in a minute, but just to say some of the supporting players, one is very familiar with from records over the years. Ray Cooper playing on percussion, Danny, George's son, is on guitar throughout. Phil Capaldi turns up on drums, playing for Joe Brown's band. Jim's brother, saw him in concert at a Jim Capaldi concert in 1983 at the Marquee, I seem to remember. Henry Spinetti on drums, who'd played on Gone Troppo. Jim Keltner, who'd obviously played on quite a few of George's albums as well as John's. Tom Scott on saxophone, standing at the back. Jim Horn, I'm not sure if I recognise Jim Horn, but he's credited here. Albert Lee, the famous country rock guitarist, on superb form here. Mark Mann, kind of latter-day friend of George's who helped out with Brainwashed. Klaus Voormann is here playing bass on a couple of songs, not throughout the concert. Chris Stainton, Eric's keyboard player, is on hand. Andy Fairweather-Lowe, who plays superb guitar, and he was on George's Japan tour and has also toured regularly with Roger Waters over the years. Backing vocalist Tessa Niles and Katie Kassoon. So yeah, I think we'll go through the concert. Well, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I did skip the Indian section, with all due respect to Ravi Shankar. It's just not it doesn't bear too much repeated listening or watching for me, but all respect to that for those of you who do enjoy it. But I skipped straight to the beginning of the main. I even skipped Jeff Lynne doing The Inner Light, I'm afraid. I went straight to the Monty Python songs, which were pretty amusing, and Tom Hanks is guesting as part of the Lumjack chorus. Jeff Lynne does a pretty decent version of I Want to Tell You. Then If I Needed Someone is tackled mainly with Eric Clapton on vocals. Eric Clapton was kind of the mastermind behind this concert. He got everyone together. And it's a pretty impressive array of people. It's interesting how the lineup here features a lot of people who were at the Concert for Bangla Desh back in 71, 31 years before, because you've got Eric, Ringo, Billy Preston. Was Klaus Voormann at Concert for Bangla Desh? I can't quite remember, I think. But anyway, so that's definitely those first three. And Jim Keltner, of course, was also at both. So if I needed someone's pretty decent, Gary Brooker has a go at Old Brown Shoe, it's not bad. Jeff Lynne tackles Give Me Love pretty well. And then Joe Brown comes on and does quite a creditable version of Here Comes the Sun, but I think the most adventurous pick from the whole concert for me, where people haven't just gone for the obvious, is Joe Brown doing That's the Way It Goes from Gon Troppo. And I just wish that some of the others had chosen some more obscure songs from George's catalogue, and just said, this is what I'm going to do because this is my favourite song. But the set list is a little bit safe if you look at it. It's just the most well-known George tracks, which is fine. But for example, on this album, George Fest, they dig a little deeper into George's catalogue. This was a concert from 2014. And, songs like I'd Have You Anytime and Behind That Locked Door, Let It Down, and the title track, All Things Must Pass, which is also on Concert for George, but Ballad of Funky Crisp. There's a few sort of album tracks on there which don't feature here, but That's the Way It Goes is delightful, and Andy Fairweather Low's playing that lovely guitar part in the middle, the guitar solo. And you've got Sam Brown coming on doing Horse to the Water with Jules Holland. This was George's last track he ever wrote, or ever released anyway, and it's okay, it's not bad, quite bluesy, and Albert Lee and Eric playing nice guitar in the back. And then Tom Petty comes on and does a brilliant version of Taxman, slightly slowed down, and I just loved the band performance from the Heartbreakers, and particularly Scott Thurston on his guitar and backing vocals, and later plays harmonica on Handled with Care. I thought he was really impressive. And I think all the musicians, you can just tell they're so glad to be part of this concert. They're smiling their heads off. Wonderful to see. And then Tom Petty does the track from Help, I Need You, and just emphasises what a nice melody that track is, and he does a lovely version of that. Then he brings on Dunny and Jeff Lynne to do Handled with Care, which is great. Then Billy Preston, I think he was to die about 4 years after this concert, or 3 or 4 years after this concert. He looks in reasonable health here, and he sings a great version of Isn't It a Pity, and then does this extended organ solo where Andy Fairweather Low is egging him on and saying great stuff, and he's just does this brilliant solo. It lasts about 90 seconds. It's just great. Ringo then comes on and does Photographs. So you've got two Beatles at this concert. Indeed, sadly, just the two remaining Beatles. And with John and George having gone by this stage, and Photograph takes on a new meaning, as Ringo said. He does a version of that. He does a version of Honey Don't, the Carl Perkins tune. And then Paul comes on and does For You Blue from the Let It Be sessions, which was interesting because that wasn't, by all accounts, the happiest period of the Beatles' career, but he does a nice version of that, and then he does something on the ukulele, Paul, and then it goes into the band version with Eric, and it's just wonderful. And he's been doing that in concerts for the last, ever since, really. And then, interestingly, Paul covers All Things Must Pass, which again was a track featured in the Let It Be sessions, but John and Paul were not that keen on it, or for some reason it didn't get finished. And then it only turned up on George's first solo album, so it must have been a bit strange for Paul to do that as the kind of his contribution to Concert for George. I'm sure George would have seen the irony in it, but he does a nice, faithful rendition. But it is just one of the mysteries of all time, really, how the Beatles didn't make a better fist of that and produce it into the classic, which it is, and it really is a solo classic, but it could have been a Beatles classic. And then interesting to see Paul take the piano, and actually interesting to see him kind of take a back seat for maybe not the first time in his life, but it's pretty rare to see him kind of playing second fiddle to the main event. Quite humbling, really, to see that. And he's playing the piano intro to While My Guitar Gently Weeps, those opening notes on the piano, and he's singing the lead vocal jointly with Eric, because he did the higher harmony vocal on the original, and it's just great to see. And then even on My Sweet Lord, Paul stays on the piano, and even joins in with a couple of the Hare Krishnas. And then he's still there for Wah Wah, which is like the last song of the concert, practically. And Wah Wah was definitely a song written about the tensions that were going on within the Beatles, particularly with McCartney, I think. George just left the Beatles on January the 10th, 1969, went home and said, "Wah Wah, you're giving me such a wah wah, and I'm thinking of you and all the things we used to do." So it must have been a bit strange for Paul to be playing the piano on that song, but I'm sure he overcame any reservations. And on the whole, you can tell he's pretty damn pleased to be there, and everyone is really. It's just Paul wasn't perhaps in that kind of inner clique of George Harrison friends, you know, the Wilbury set, as we call it, or the Henley-on-Thames set, whichever way you want to look at it. There was a very close circle of friends, and maybe Paul wasn't in that inner circle in the last few years of George's life, but they were still lifelong friends. And then the concert is brought to a tremendous end with Joe Brown coming on and do "I'll See You in My Dreams," and all the confetti comes down from the ceiling at the Albert Hall, and Olivia comes on and embraces Dunny, and it's really quite emotional. You can tell the musicians are pretty overcome with the emotion of the occasion, and that, as Olivia said in one of the sleeve notes here, you know, they were trying. Each note and lyric of George's song we treated with reverence, and of course his words became a constant dialogue to us, especially lines like "Beware of sadness, it can hit you, it can hurt you, make you sore, and what is more, that is not what you are here for." So we tried not to be sad, but instead celebrated the life and music of a great artist, the beautiful quiet one from Liverpool who became a man of many words, many as well as worlds, a wise and coveted friend, father and seeker who transcended the distractions of success and fame to maintain one pointed focus upon his goal of spiritual awakening. He did all this while entertaining the world and having an equal measure of fun along the way. I noticed that she doesn't pay tribute to him as a husband in that little piece there, which I'm not sure if I'm going to read anything into that, but yeah, so what else can we say? Well, I just loved seeing, as I say, every musician was, no Bob Dylan, that's perhaps the only surprise here, but I think he was on his never-ending tour, so he probably couldn't quite make the date. He was probably on the other side of the world at this stage, but not sure how short notice the concert was. But he's perhaps the only sort of, not glaring omission, but unfortunate omission. But for the most part, this was George's best friends and admirers coming together for a wonderful concert. And I was really pleased to watch this last night, having hooked up my TV to the decent speaker again, and able to watch music videos in a great setting again. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.